Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I had the most wonderful revelation just a day or two ago, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to spring this on him on the podcast so he can't say no.
Okay.
Tony, what's my favorite thing to do when we go to a bowl game?
Go to a different bowl game?
Go to a different bowl game. Tony, you're never going to believe what's happening in the Dallas Metroplex on December 26th.
What?
Tony, it's the First Responders Bowl. We played at Gerald Ford Stadium, not named for the former president, named for an entirely different Gerald Ford, on the campus of lovely Southern Methodist University. Tony, December 26th, 4:30 p.m. I think that's Central Time. Yeah, Central Time. Right after we do our interviews with Missouri's, I think, offense at Jerry World, we have just enough time to get over to Gerald Ford Stadium and watch Texas State and Rice play in the First Responders Bowl. Tony, who says no?
Oh, Tom, so many people say no. You lost me at Texas State and Rice. Now, you lost me well before that. You lost me at the fact that it's not even the same Gerald Ford. I'm sorry. If your stadium is named after a president, but not actually the president, and it's just somebody else, some just random guy, I can't do it. I can't lower myself to go to a stadium. Like, it's Ronald Reagan, not that Ronald Reagan. It's his son. It's Ron Reagan Jr. Like, I'm not stepping foot in that stadium. It's not even the son of a president who doesn't even become president. No. And Gerald Ford, did he even win an election?
No, in fact, he was the only person to never win an election, serve as president without ever winning an election as either vice president or president. Now, you're going to regret this when Ohio State schedules a game at Iowa State in the Millard Fillmore Dome in just a few years, and you're like, what? But that's not even the same Millard Fillmore, and that's not even the name of their stadium. I'm going to say, shut up. You remember what you said about Gerald Ford. You can't take that back.
I don't want to get into presidential trivia, Tom. That's our presidential trivia weekly podcast, 3 times a week, of course. It's not the same Millard Fillmore, Tom. Are you pulling my leg now? How many Millard Fillmores are there?
Just enough. It's actually the Mallard Fillmore Dome, named after the cartoon character. Not many people know that, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Tom, we're going to start the show over, thankfully. But no, we are going to talk about the Ohio State recruiting class. 2024 signing day was Wednesday. I don't know whether I should apologize for throwing a 7-hour podcast into the Buckeye Weekly feed or say you're welcome. You know, if you partook, bless you. But we wanted to provide everything we did yesterday, and that was one way to do it. So that was a 7-hour show of highs and lows, ups and downs. It was one show at the first half of the first 3 hours, and then you talked to Ryan Day, which is maybe the intermission, and then the second half of the show got much better. It was really a tremendous ending for Ohio State, even though we ended up leaving the show before we received word from Jeremiah Smith, definitive, that his LOI was in. And then the waiting game, Tom, the concern from people, and all the while we're saying everything is fine, and it's not fine. It's not fine. The letter of intent is not in. The Ohio State has not tweeted out, so it's not fine. But I don't know, around 9 or 10 o'clock, it finally came in with Mark Pantoni tweeting the gif of the Undertaker rising, and then it's like, okay, I know what this means. And then, like 1 minute later, Ohio State tweets out their graphic with Jeremiah Smith. Crisis averted. The Buckeyes land the best player in the nation. Just they've had him committed for like over a year. He recommitted on signing day, and then drama. Then it really got scary.
Well, I saw someone say, I wish you guys had kept your show going through Jeremiah Smith's letter of intent coming in, which number one would have been a 13-hour live stream, which even by our standards would be excessive. But also, I think it's, there was never really, you never heard that there was really any cause for concern after the announcement at noon. Like you could tell, and Jeremiah Smith said, he had a Miami hat and an Ohio State hat in that bag and was not 100% sure what he was going to do until he, a couple minutes before that. And you could tell based on Ryan Day's reaction, there was sort of a theatrical reaction after the initial reaction, but the initial reaction was like very much like okay, all right, we got through that one. That was a very genuine, like, sigh of relief from Ryan Day. And then we had the Edric Houston thing, and that's a whole separate thing. But, after the announcement at noon that he was, sort of reaffirmed to Ohio State, again, people were sort of freaking out, and we kept saying to people at our board kept asking, like, what are you hearing? What are you hearing? What are you hearing? And it's like, the last thing anyone has heard, and the thing that we continue to hear, is that it's okay, and it's just sort of like, there's not a cause for concern right now. And they were just sort of finalizing some stuff. And then once you send your letter of intent in, you lose some leverage in terms of getting specific stuff finalized. So, okay, you get your stuff finalized, and then you send it in. There was not really a cause for concern. But with the emotional roller coaster that day was, where it started with rumor that they might lose Jeremiah Smith, and it started with like significant national people talking about, boy, Edric Houston trending towards Alabama, and oh boy, this is a really, nationally respected people. This was not just like message board dude 420 saying this. This was like nationally respected people who have the connections that would know what was going on. To go from that to then during the Ryan Day press conference, Jeremiah Smith reaffirms his commitment. Edric Houston calls Ryan Day. Ryan Day leaves his press conference in the middle of the press conference to take a phone call from Edric Houston, comes back in a really, really good mood. And it was like, I wonder what that was about. And then Edric Houston commits again, announces that he's going to be signing with Ohio State shortly after that, and then sends in his letter of intent shortly after that. And it was just this incredible roller coaster of emotions for, Ohio State fans, certainly, but you could also tell, Tony, everyone in that building, like that was, however invested Ohio State fans are in that, I can assure you, Larry Johnson and Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, those guys, this meant a whole lot more to them than it did to anyone at home.
Yeah, it reminded me of Urban Meyer, the 2013 class, waiting on Von Bell's signature, and just he had to get out of the room and just go, I think, run on the just jog in place on the run thingy time. I don't know what windmills. What are they called?
Treadmill.
I'm just messing with you. He had to go run.
You're thinking of Don Quixote, and that was the signing class of like 17 something, I think.
Had to go run on the treadmill, and then just bothering Everett Withers like every 2 minutes. What have you heard? Where are we? What's going on with Von Bell? And they finally get it. Or 2017, the class of 2017, when Baron Browning called Urban Meyer to tell him, hey, I'm going to, I don't know if he said, I'm going to Texas or I'm going to Oklahoma. And Urban took his phone and he just threw it up against the wall and broke it. And Browning's dad called Urban like a minute later saying, hey, coach, we got him. He's like, what are you talking about? He committed to, Texas. He's like, no, he was just messing with you. And so Urban Meyer talking through this broken phone about that sort of thing. And the emotions in all of this. And yeah, Ryan Day was theatrical, but the voice, you could hear it in his voice that was one. And just, you see him like looking off to get a signal from Mark Pantoni, ducking his head in there. And you can just see like hope and concern in his eyes, and then relief. So yeah, these guys, I mean, Tom, we work hard. All right, we work hard. These guys are busting their butt for these kids who you think you've done everything you've needed to do. And how many times over the last couple of years has Ohio State done everything they needed to do and still lost out on guys? And so I think everybody stepped up in a big way for Edric Houston, for Jeremiah Smith, and for anybody else they needed to get. And I did see, Tom, I'm not surprised by this. I don't know if we even need to talk about this, but a couple of the Ohio State collectives patting themselves on the back on Thursday for a job well done on their parts. And so, it is part of the world right now. The collectives have to be involved, and so they did. So give them some credit, I guess. but it's not all fantastic. And we'll get to the superlatives in a bit, but let's also talk about, you lose Jeremiah McClellan, and he's one of my favorite receivers in this class, and he's dynamic and he's electric with the ball after the catch. I think he's going to do really well at Oregon. For a while, they wanted 4 guys. They only end up with 2. They didn't really go hard for 4 guys the last couple of months, it seems, which to me, is that a statement about Emeka Egbuka perhaps coming back, that sort of thing, where they're not necessarily going to lose as many people as they thought? Because it certainly seems like they were definitely going to get 4 guys, and then the season happens, and it's like, well, three's we're good at 3.
Well, you're good at 3 because I think you've sort of seen that the guys a year ahead of them, you've got some dudes, I think, already in the 2023 class. So Carnell Tate and Brandon Inniss and Noah Rogers and Bryson Rogers. I think they feel like they've got at least a couple of those guys where you've seen enough that it's like, all right, I think you can sort of pencil this guy into the 2 deep. There has been plenty of smoke around Emeka Egbuka. He hasn't announced a formal decision yet for 2024. He has said he's going to play in the Cotton Bowl, which obviously is step number 1 to returning for the 2024 season. And based on where he probably falls in the draft order, I think there's a pretty compelling case that he could come back for another year and probably boost his stock. And with NIL, you can make a decent living, Tony, playing college football these days, above the table and everything. And so you can make, you can have a nice, solid financial year, and then you can also potentially boost your draft stock with a healthy year, and then be in a wide receiver class that does not include Marvin Harrison Jr. and such and such. And Marvin Harrison Jr. has not officially announced yet, but I think he's probably fairly safe to say that he's going to go. This is a pretty good year for wide receivers. So if you're the 6th guy off the board, you might go at the end of the first round, you might have a good chance to be a top 3 wide receiver if you come back for next year. So I think there's a pretty compelling case for him to come back. And I think that it feels like the winds are sort of starting to blow in that direction, that he may be coming back. And if he does, well, you've only got so many footballs. And this is a pretty talented wide receiver room as it is, where he would be a 4th-year player. You've got Carnell Tate, you've got Brandon Inniss, you got the 2 Rogers guys from last year. Jeremiah Smith, I'm not saying Jeremiah Smith's going to start the first game of the season, and I don't think Jeremiah Smith's going to start the first game of the season, but I think Jeremiah Smith is probably on track to be a significant contributor in 2024. And, you figure you get someone else, Mylan Graham, another 5-star guy. He's not coming in till the summer. So, he's probably a little bit, on a little bit of a slower track than Jeremiah Smith, but he might be a contributor by the end of the year. What do you get out of Keaton Grays? What do you get out of Kojo Antwi? What do you get out of Jaden Ballard? I mean, all these guys are there. You're not in a desperate situation. You've got, if you've got at least 2 guys you're feeling good about last year, and at least 2 guys you're feeling good about this year, yeah, you don't want to lose Jeremiah McClellan. He's a really good player, but this is one of these things where if you had to choose one position group to lose a really solid top 100 commit from, wide receiver is about, that is the pile you would discard from, because that's the one where you never really worry, like, oh boy, is there enough high level talent in that room? The answer is pretty much always under Brian Hartline. Yes, it'll be fine.
And it was interesting listening to Ryan Day talk about Demarion Witten, who is the tight end out of Glenville, who plays receiver and quarterback for Glenville, and also kicker. So just keep an eye on that. But talked about how he could be in the mix as a receiver for Ohio State until he grows into a tight end. And I mentioned this on another show this week, where I don't think he's the guy, Demarion Witten, that you develop for 3 years without using over that time frame. Like, he's a dynamic athlete, and it would seem to be like a waste to just, you work in practice, and then we'll see you in 3 years. It's like, no, he's a unique guy. Go ahead and use him now. He also is not at this point enrolling early. So everybody, just assume everybody is enrolling early at this point, except for Mylan Graham, the 2 tight ends, and Witten and Max LeBlanc. and Leroy Roker, the safety, and Gabe Van Sickle, the offensive lineman. Other than that, everybody at this point seems as though they are enrolling early. And so that's a lot of guys. That's 75% of your class, which is good. Tom, I want to look at the numbers. The defensive line, I think, is the area where we talked about this plenty on Wednesday. They didn't hit their number in terms of you have one defensive end and one defensive tackle in the class. Looks like they're still trying to land Dominic Kirk's Ohio defensive lineman. So that may increase that number. But Ryan Day said they want 8 defensive tackles and 8 defensive ends in the room. So 16 defensive linemen total. Right now, if we don't include Jaden McKenzie, and he could come back, he has an extra year of eligibility, but if we don't include him, they would then have 8 defensive tackles, and that is with including Mensa. And if they don't lose anybody at defensive end, like if they don't lose JT Tuimoloau or Jack Sawyer, they've got 8 guys at defensive end, including if you throw Arvell Reese in there as well. So they're at that number. So that they hit the number that they want. I'm sure, though, that they wouldn't have mind being over those numbers.
Well, and that's a position where you're not going to necessarily just walk onto campus and just day one be an impact guy. So, bringing in a true freshman next year, that guy is not necessarily going to be ready to contribute immediately. There's a lot that hinges on, does JT Tuimoloau come back? Does Jack Sawyer come back? If you have your same top 4 as this year, you're feeling great about life. JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry. Life is great if that all happens. We haven't gotten that confirmed yet, that JT Tuimoloau is coming back, that Jack Sawyer is coming back. It is interesting how the spectrum of possible outcomes here. 24 hours ago, 48 hours ago as we're recording this, if they were going to miss on Edric Houston, they were going to have no defensive ends in this class. You still didn't know about JT Tuimoloau. You still didn't know about Jack Sawyer. Then you might be at 5. That's a real problem. And that's a problem this year. And then that is, when next year, Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry are potentially eligible leaves. Then you've got 3 guys plus whatever you bring in next cycle. And then the pressure's really on to bring in guys. To now have Edric Houston, okay, that's a little bit of a take a deep breath and exhale. And then if you do keep either Sawyer or Tuimoloau or both, and you've sort of heard that things are maybe trending in a direction of a return for at least one or both of those guys, then all of a sudden the 2024 defensive line room looks like it's in decent shape. But I mean, we're talking about this is the same thing we've talked about with these games, with losing to Michigan based on one offensive lineman steps on the other guy's foot. The class based on, does Ryan Day walk back into the recruiting room to the team room on Wednesday afternoon during the middle of his press conference with a smile on his face or with a frown on his face? Like, what does Ryan Day hear on a phone call? That's the difference between, boy, this class was a disaster on the defensive line versus, well, they were shorter on their numbers, but boy, they got a really talented edge guy who could be a pretty significant impact player in the next year or two. This is the stuff that is, aging college football players or college football coaches in dog years right now, where you're dealing with such fine margins and you don't know. You guys who have been solidly committed for months and months and months, you should just be sort of like, okay, it was sort of a formality to get the signature on early signing day. Now it's just like you're sweating till the 11th hour, and you can see why the blood pressure, the average blood pressure in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center and facilities like it all around the nation might be up by about 5-10 points this time of year.
Yeah, they do need like a monitor on those thumb scanners that they have, the biometrics. Be like, hey, whoa, calm down. You need to take a couple of breaths before you bring that energy into this building. If they can keep JT Tuimoloau out and Jack Sawyer, That then slows down the time frame of when they could potentially lose Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry. That could keep them in town another extra year, assuming one of them isn't like, you know what, I want to go play. I'm going to go play somewhere else, which is the other danger that you're constantly having to deal with. But landing Edric Houston, Charlie Brown finally got to kick the football. So congratulations to Larry Johnson and Ryan Day. And Larry Johnson, Ryan Day said he expects him to be back next year. So there is that. I assume that ends the speculation for now until we hear anything different, because we'll take Ryan Day at his word there. So he said there are around 83 or 84 players in terms of the scholarships. I've got here, I can just run down the position numbers. 3 quarterbacks, which is 1 under Day's number that he would like. 4 running backs, assuming Travion Henderson is back. Like right now, I'm counting him back, but we'll see. That's 1 under what they would like. 10 wide receivers. I am counting Marvin Harrison is out. And I'm assuming Emeka Ibuka is back, along with Jaden Ballard and Keon Grays and Kojo Antwi, and then the 6 guys from the last 2 classes. 6 tight ends, that's plenty. 16 offensive linemen, that's a good number. That's 3 or 4 more than Jim Bowman and Jim Tressel used to like to have. So that's a decent number there. Linebackers, depending on what you see out of Sonny Styles, is between 6 and 7. And when you're running a 4-2-5, that feels like an okay number, but it's thin on experience when the most experienced guy coming back is Cody Simon. CJ Hicks and Gabe Powers will be 3rd-year players. Sonny Styles will be a 3rd-year player. We'll find out when we move them down closer to the line, when we move them out of safety. So they've got some numbers there. They don't have a ton of experience. 7 safeties, 9 corners, assuming Denzel Burke is back. We don't know for sure if he is back. 3 specialists. I think that equates to 82 guys. So they still have room for the portal. We do both expect them to hit the portal, and that will be happening sometime after the season. And then there is also the spring portal season. So there's your numbers. Tom, any thoughts on the numbers before I move to some questions for you about the freshmen?
No, I was just, as you were talking, scrolling through the available quarterbacks in the transfer portal. Boy, there are some names in here, some real names. Drew Pine, currently available. Jeff Sims, still on the open market.
Pass.
Chubba Purdy still available. Tony finally transferring from the University of California at Berkeley. Sam Jackson V. I'm sick of this transfer portal quarterbacks on this transfer portal plane.
Did you see yesterday that Devin Hester Jr. signed with, I believe, Furman?
I did not see that. I remember getting really upset when there were, players from the 80s and their kids, Deron Carter is in college, and oh man, Chris Carter's kid is in college. And now it's like, okay, guys whose career highlights are all in HD, they're now signing, their kids are now signing. And I can feel the unstoppable march of time pressing up against me right now. And it's not a good feeling at all.
It isn't, and that's why I wanted to mention it so that other people can feel the same pain. So, Tom, I've got some questions, just a handful, on some predictions for this freshman class. And we can do this in one of 2 ways, where basically the first question I have here is first player to start. And if you want to say Jeremiah Smith, that's fine. But the first player to start, and then the qualifier on all of these questions is other than Jeremiah Smith. So, of these 19 players, other than Jeremiah Smith, who do you predict will make their first start before anybody else?
So yeah, Jeremiah Smith is, I feel like, the strongly implied answer to all of these questions. So we're going to leave him to the side for now. Mylan Graham is another great answer, but he's not going to be there till the summer. So I feel like that might be maybe not just yet. I think when you look back historically at where they have had guys start as true freshmen, I'm looking at corners. I'm looking at running backs. And I think I will say they've got decent depth at corner, but, I'll say, I feel like it's going to be a running back or a corner, and I'm going to pick the wrong one. I'm going to say Aaron Scott here, just based on the fact that we've seen, a couple years ago, Denzel Burke started game number 1, and the corner depth chart at Ohio State is going to be way, way better in 2024 than it was in 2021. But 2 years ago, 2022, we saw Jair Brown start game, 4 or 5, whatever it was, against Wisconsin as a true freshman. And, that took several injuries, but if you're playing teams that are not going to be super pass happy, maybe you feel like you can get away with it. So I'll say Aaron Scott for my prediction for a first start.
You are incorrect. Now, you are correct that a freshman corner has made a start in each of the last 3 years. Jermaine Matthews got a start this year as well. But simply too many corners on the roster for a starter to come from the freshman class this year. And it was a nice attempt. It was an obvious attempt. That's what I expected. The answer is James Peoples, just so we're clear. Whether or not Travion Henderson is at Ohio State, it's been a while since he's made it every game without being injured. And so I would expect an injury at some point. Also, we know that they do not play Dallin Hayden. So that moves James Peoples way up the depth chart. So really, process of elimination. I'm going to go with James Peoples there to make that one. Tom, and we will have our Black Stripe draft sometime in February. But other than Jeremiah Smith, the first Black Stripe to be removed will be.
I'm going to not say Aaron Scott again here, just to avoid being too repetitive. Again, I've got a couple choices here. One has a cousin on the team and is known, just seems like he's going to sort of follow in his cousin's career path. I guess I'll go, though, with Edric Houston. I think he's someone who you could see him, he's got the size and the athleticism that, I think he has the possibility of being that guy. The obvious answer here is it's going to be Jeremiah Smith. So who loses it after Jeremiah Smith? And I'll go with Edric Houston. I think Aaron Scott's a perfectly acceptable answer here too. I think, I think the guy with the cousin, Tony, might be your pick. I think that maybe that's the smart pick here, but I don't, I think you get several good choices. I will go with Edric Houston just to mix things up a little.
I will also mix things up a little bit. I'm going to go way off the board, and I'm going to go with either Peyton Pierce or Leroy Roker. Roker's
all right,
a riser, a lower rated guy, but impressive. But I think with Peyton Pierce, like those two guys play the game the way coaches like, and so they can sometimes make an impact just running headfirst into stuff. Like, oh, I like that. Let's get that black stripe off. The way he just. Did you see the way he just ran straight into that guy? Didn't ask any questions, just did what we told him. Boy, I like that. So there might be some of that. So although as I'm remembering now, Leroy Roker not in for the spring.
Correct. So, I was waiting for you to not remember that and say you should take him first in Black Stripe draft as well. Yeah, and I was very clear. I was trying to avoid saying Garrett Stover's name because I figured for sure that was who Tony was going to pick, based largely on the running face first into stuff thing that he mentioned with Peyton Pierce. And, he's Cade Stover's cousin, and he's been around the program for a million years now. And he was like one of the free spaces on the bingo card in terms of visiting for games last year. So, man, it was. I think he might be my second pick behind Edric Houston or Aaron Scott or someone like that.
Well, I will note that away for when we do our draft. Tom, this last one for you. You can go ahead and take any player. The first
Jeremiah Smith
player to transfer.
The first player to transfer. Oh boy, Tony. I'm going to go. No, I'm going to take this one. It's going to be Tate Martell.
Oh no, please not Tate.
No?
Take that back. So okay, that was the only other question I have for you, Tom, and I'll join you in on this one. Give me the game and the quarter of Jeremiah Smith's first touchdown, because I already know what it's going to be. Let's see if you agree with me. I'll give you some time to look up the schedule. I will tell you Saturday, August 31st, they play Akron. Week 2, September 7th, they play Western Michigan. I don't think I need to go beyond there, but I don't think you needed to go past Akron.
Akron third quarter.
That's exactly what I was going with. Akron third quarter. I will take do you want to take the first half of the quarter or the second half of the quarter? We'll really try to nail this down.
Well, and so we're going to split Akron third quarter. Now the question, Tony, is would you like Akron second quarter or Akron fourth quarter as the backup?
Because I think they're going to want to throw the ball around. You know what? I'm going to take Akron second quarter.
I would also have taken Akron second quarter. Yes. I think if you set the over under at 7.5 minutes of the third quarter, I think I'm probably taking the under there. So yeah,
I'll get the second quarter and the first half of the third quarter, and you get the rest of the game. Is that the first quarter?
Whoa. No. I think if you get the second quarter, I get the first 7.5 minutes of the third quarter. I think for sure I get the.
Oh, all right. Okay. Ooh. Well, we'll have to hash this out in August, but yeah, when I was looking at this, I'm like, well, this seems very simple. Third quarter, first game, Akron, throwing it around, whether it's whoever the quarterback is at that point. I think I'm already going to lock in for a 2-pointer or a 3-point bold prediction on 3 quarterbacks throwing touchdowns in that game. Just an FYI.
That's probably not a bad one. 3 quarterbacks throwing touchdowns. Yeah, that's not a bad one for that first game. I'm just looking to see where Akron's recruiting class ranked for this year. Still scrolling.
Ahead of Colorado's?
Well, I've hit the FCS school, so I think I need to scroll back up. 107th in the nation. 107th. 2 spots behind Bowling Green. 1 spot ahead of UConn. 2 spots ahead of Brown Thunder and UMass.
Did I see Colorado signed 5 high school guys? I heard that. Is that a real thing?
I know it was not great. I know it was not great.
Or something like that?
No. 98th, and they signed 6 high school guys.
My bad.
Yeah, that's they have they signed 5. They also currently hold a commitment from Jordan Seaton.
Yes.
I would not bother hanging on to that ticket. I don't think that one's going to cash. They do, Tony, have 16 transfers already. I am thinking that the window of possible outcomes for the Deion Sanders era at Colorado is starting to slide a little bit towards the left side of the possible outcomes graph, because that does not seem like it is being built for long-term success, and it seems like the person who is going to take over after him, whenever that happens, is probably not going to have a good time for a little while.
I will say, Tom, they do have the number 2 average ranking per recruit of their 6 guys. So, I mean, that's a pretty good score there for Colorado, 93.13. I mean, 1 5-star, 3 4 stars, 2 3 stars. Not many national programs, national powerhouses only have 2 3 stars. So you got to give Colorado some credit there.
This recruiting class is what people act like Ohio State's recruiting class is every year. They have a top 100 wide receiver, a top 100 athlete, a 4-star defensive lineman, a 3-star defensive lineman, and a 3-star running back. The 101st best player in the state of Georgia. And again, a 5-star offensive lineman who has not signed his papers yet and is probably not headed to Colorado. Seems not great.
Well, that's your opinion, Tom, because they've got a bunch of transfers coming in, and it's going to be fantastic. And we're all going to watch next year. I can't wait. 2024 is going to be a fantastic season. 2023, Tom, is still going on. We will be headed for Dallas in just a few days. hitting the airport on Christmas Day to be there for interviews on the 26th with coaches and players. And, it's just going to be 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th. Giving you all kinds of Cotton Bowl coverage. And now is the perfect time to sign up and join us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Now is also the perfect time to hit the bell on this. Like this video as well. Hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. But again, find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Join up. Become a member. See us on the message board there. Talk to us. Check out all of the behind-the-scenes goings-on as Ohio State ramps up for this game and then heads into the second signing day and all of the transfer portal stuff. And spring ball, Tom, you might want to start adding that to your Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning calendar, your countdown, because it's only it's like 3 months away. So we're almost there, ready for spring ball as this season is wrapping up. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.